Hello and welcome to the StudsUp podcast. I am Garfield. I'm here with my co-host Simon Says, and this edition of the podcast, we're actually going to do something a little bit different. As you can tell, there's been an international round, so there were no games to review. So Simon Says and I sat down and had a bit of a think about some of the other things going on in world football and in the Premier League that we'd like to have a bit of a chat to you guys about. So if you'd like to also chip in something that you'd like us to talk about, maybe the next time an international round comes up or whatever, you can always put it on our Facebook page, StudsUp. Just go straight on there, give us some likes. Again, you can comment on this podcast as well, talk about how stupid we are or how great our ideas are. Long silence. Also, you can find us on our website. It's studsup-football.com. But without further ado, Simon Says, I know that it's been an international round, and the leading story this entire round has been my personal favourite player in the known universe.
Wayne Jefferson Rooney.
Forever and ever. Wayne Jefferson Rooney. It is
it's
not
his middle name now.
It is definitely not
Jefferson.
Now. Yeah. No. Well, mind you, we named his kid Kai, so maybe it is Jefferson.
God, he's such a
Can I, by the way, just on that point, I know I'm just going way off on a tangent here.
Please tangent away.
Do you know one of my favourite all-time chants? And it was against Wayne Rooney. This is so random. Do you remember years ago when he cheated on his wife Colleen?
Yeah.
And he just had his son Kai.
Yeah.
And the Tottenham fans chanted at him in the next game because Colleen and Kai had left him. No woman, no Kai.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a famous...
No woman, no Kai. Great. Just a great chant.
And if you don't necessarily know how you feel about the Premier League or if you're on the fence... English fans make these games.
Hilarious.
Get yourself to a game.
Yeah.
If you're ever over in England or if you're listening to us in Blighty, definitely get to a game because these chants, they make it. I remember when I was at Anfield and the travelling Everton fans were there. I got to say, give them stick, but they were hysterical.
Yeah.
The chants were just so good, so funny.
Yeah.
I love the emotion in it. It's brilliant. So
yeah, like I still remember the first chant. I can even remember. Wow, we really have tangented. But
have.
I like the tangent.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite chants that I heard when I was young, and I was watching United again versus Spurs. Weirdly enough, and the chant was for David Ginola against David Beckham. And the chant was, oh, Posh Spice is a tosser. She wears a Wonder Bra. And when she's shagging Beckham, she thinks of Ginola.
Yeah.
Hey, Posh.
Yeah. One of my favorites.
Exceptional chant. Anyway.
I just wonder who sits down and comes up with these because whoever he is, he's a genius.
Yeah, no,
it's one man.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun, actually.
It's just one guy. He sits in a room and he writes. He's like, no, that's not true. But
I used to do a different podcast back in the day where we had to write chants for the World Cup. I wrote some really good ones. No, I wrote some really good ones, even if I do say so myself. Anyway, we should move on to the actual point. Wayne Rooney has been the big talking point of the last 2 weeks because he's been dropped by both Manchester United and by England. He's the player that everyone loves to blame. You in particular.
Yeah. In particular. Don't say everyone when it's you.
Oh, no, it's always me. If you've listened to even 2 minutes of this podcast, you would have heard my diatribes about Wayne Rooney. So Simon Says, I'll throw it over to you. Has all of this hatred that's now all of a sudden become mainstream, by the way. It was always, in the internet, there was always a lot of bile and vile stuff said about him online and whatever. But now it's become mainstream. Or even the pundits, who were always his one bastion of hope, have turned on him.
Look, Wayne's never been likeable.
And, he's never been likeable.
He's never been likeable, so I kind of feel like this is a long time coming for him. Well, a little bit. I mean, yes and no. There's no such thing as comeuppance, I don't necessarily think. I don't know if everyone's got a long-term enough memory or plan to actually give someone comeuppance.
Well, Manchester United fans do after 2010 when he tried to engineer that move to City. And I can tell you right now, that's why a lot of people hate him.
And that was an idiotic thing to do. You do not leverage your club, your fans like that ever, which is why the hatred is so strong with Sterling.
Exactly. But even worse, I mean, that would be like Lukaku leveraging a move away from Everton to Liverpool. Like every Evertonian would hate his guts.
I agree.
And that's why a lot of Manchester United fans, even though a lot of them accepted Rooney, particularly when he was doing well, as soon as he's not, I think that's where you see a lot of the hatred come from.
And but I don't blame the fans. I don't blame them.
Neither do I. On that point, by the way, someone retorted to me with this. They said, yeah, but Roy Keane, he nearly left for a free transfer to Madrid to get more money. And Rio Ferdinand, he got suspended and then he leveraged a deal to Chelsea to get more money. And I say to those people this. That's not Manchester City.
It's totally different. I don't even know why that's
a different scenario.
I don't know why that's even a discussion.
Oh, they just got brought up by someone. I was like, that's bollocks.
I can't necessarily agree with that point of view. I think for me, it has a lot to do. Look, there are circumstances even beyond whether it's another. If it was amicable and it was,
fair enough,
a rival, or they did a roundabout way to get there.
Yeah.
For example, I don't share the hatred of a lot of Liverpool fans towards Michael Owen.
Okay, Michael Owen.
The fact that he ended up at United.
Well, there was a lot of clubs in between.
There were plenty of clubs in between. Yeah. So for me, that's probably the right way to do it. If you're going to end up there, and he did go to Liverpool, and Liverpool kind of rejected him.
That's right.
They didn't want him back.
And so it's a different scenario.
Whereas Rooney, I actually just think what he did was exactly who Rooney is.
Yeah.
Just thinking about Rooney.
Stupid oaf.
Yeah, he's just thinking about Rooney.
Yeah.
He is about himself.
Absolutely.
Always has been, always will be.
Yeah.
His PR champions him as this big team player.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's true. I think he's kind of always been about himself.
So is there a way back
I think this is the start of the end for him.
So there's no way back for Wayne Rooney?
Back in form, you can always get back in form yourself. But I think once you fall out of favour, and more so because there are so many other options now. If there weren't, and there haven't been in the past, but you're talking about now, Rashford is good.
For both England and Manchester United.
England, yeah, exactly. And England, the story gets worse for him because there's Harry Kane as well.
And Dele Alli.
And Sturridge is still there and still young enough to be there.
Absolutely.
He doesn't ever make that front part. And then when you start looking at the midfield, I actually tagged you in something on Facebook where you could see how poor his statistics were against the other England midfielders. Jordan Henderson's stats were just nuts.
Yeah, they're great.
But everybody's were better than his. Dele Alli was better than him. Eric Dyer's were better than his. So he's starting, the sheer weight of this, I think, is crumbling him. And I just think he shouldn't hold on to it with cold, grim, deathly hands. He should kind of accept where his career is going.
So if you were Wayne Rooney, where would you go next? Because, if we can both agree, and maybe this won't be the case because Mourinho is still publicly very much backed him. He's still his captain.
Yep.
But if we can both agree that this is his last season at Manchester United, where do you go?
I just don't.
He'll still only be 31.
I think
he'll be a very old 31, but he'll only be 31.
I feel like if he's going to make a move in the Premier League, it'll still be welcomed because they want him gone so bad.
I think he'll have to go back to Everton.
But
surely.
I think, I don't think Everton will take him though. I think it'll be someone else. It'll be those second tier groups that'll want him.
You don't think Everton is second tier?
Well, not this season. They're not.
Oh, so you think they're
By the way,
first tier?
when I say okay, obviously there's the first tier,
right?
But because it's become when it's become so convoluted now, I look at the top 8 as the breakaway top tier group.
So you don't see like the elite with the money.
Correct. I think it'll be the next. I could see him doing something crazy, like if Newcastle got promoted, going there and leading the line.
Well, Newcastle nearly bought him before United swept in.
Yeah, so I could see something crazy happening like that. But there's a lot of other teams that could do with someone like Rooney.
I'd be so happy if he went off to China.
I know you would. I know you want him shipped off.
Just for the transfer kitty that we would get for that move, but it would be ridiculous.
He wouldn't really do well in any of the other leagues. He might do well in France, maybe, but who
he'd
cares?
Probably be okay in France.
But who cares? Who'd want him?
He'd be dreadful in Spain.
Dreadful Spain, dreadful in Italy.
He'd
get bone crushed.
No, he'd be interesting in Italy in that he'd basically go back to being a target man, like being a real...
Who would he play for? Torino with that heart.
Yeah. The last English pit stop before your career's over. Go to Torino, my son.
Yeah, basically. Look, but I think it's the end for him. I can't tell you. I don't have a crystal ball to say where he's going to go or what's going to happen, but he's going to get marginalised now in England. Once you're out of that side, you're stuffed. Yeah. And I think he'll just do the smart thing. His PR will get him to retire from international football.
Yeah, possibly. It will be very interesting to see if Wayne Rooney makes the next World Cup. But
he'll make the squad.
Yeah,
because they'll just pick him anyway.
Yeah, he'll always be on the bench.
But why would you have him? Why would you have him in the side when you've got so many good players now in England shirts?
Yeah, that are coming through in that.
So
system.
many.
Yeah, there's
whether it's the midfield, the strikers, the wingers, the wide midfielders, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. I can't they need to escape the spectre of Rooney, and Rooney has to escape the spectre of England to try and slowly rebuild himself.
Yeah, he does.
Because right now he's being crushed by that entire nation coming down on him.
He couldn't play for Chelsea. He couldn't play for Arsenal. He couldn't play for City. He won't play for Liverpool.
No.
you're right that he could play for Everton, but I just don't think the way that team is set up that they would ruin the balance by bringing Rooney in.
What if Lukaku got sold and he came in as the replacement?
Still, that's not a good replacement for Lukaku.
I didn't say it'd be a good replacement.
No, wait. No. I think I give Koeman a lot more respect than that. I think he would make a lot more savvy decision with the money, and it would be a lot of money for Lukaku.
Yeah, it would.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greater than 50.
Yeah. Well, but United would probably sell him on the cheap. Because remember, he's got a contract till 2019 for all that money.
But that's why he would go to one of those next-tier clubs.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, we'll see what happens with him. You were just saying he'll make the World Cup squad. So let's have a really quick chat about the World Cup. Just moving on with another topic.
This was an interesting one.
I love this, to bringing this up at least for discussion. FIFA have lodged the thought of having a 48-country World Cup as opposed to 32. Now, if you haven't read this, you know how the normal layout of the World Cup works. 32 teams qualify. They all go over to the World Cup. They all get put in a group. They all play 3 games against each other. Play 3 games against each other. 2 teams go through to the next round. What FIFA want to do now is have 16 teams that qualify and go straight into their groups. Then the remaining 32 teams play a one-off game against each other to make up the rest of the 16 teams that go into the 32-team World Cup. So 48 teams go over, and 16 of those teams will only get to play 1 game for the entire World Cup. So I'm going to throw this over to Simon Says. Is this a good thing because there's more countries that get involved in the World Cup? Or is it a bad thing that 16 countries go over there for 1 game and get booted out immediately?
There are a lot of pros and cons. Unfortunately, whilst I support the idea of more teams being involved in the World Cup, there's so many things beyond what I like that we need to consider. Things like calendars. The World Cup already is so disruptive. So disruptive. You see these hangovers last well and truly into next season.
Oh, easily. Sometimes well into October, where we are now.
It is brutal. And elongating a tournament is always going to be difficult, which they're trying to avoid by having the one-off game.
So even then, you still have to add at least 4 days.
There's going to be more time already. So, but ignoring that and say, let's just say, for argument's sake, that's nominal and it won't have that big an effect. You then got to consider something else. Well, you're kind of shortchanging quite a few teams that would normally get greater exposure through a World Cup and more players that would get more exposure through a World Cup. You're kind of marginalizing more teams faster. I don't know if I can support that. I mean, the ideal thought is that, seasons would be either delayed and there would be a longer break period for players. I don't know how you would actually make it happen. But if you could do that and you could involve more countries, I think it'd be great, because the more that are involved, the more it embodies the notion of a World Cup. I mean, let's think about it. It's called a World Cup.
That's what qualifying's for, though.
Yeah, exactly. But the qualifying, again, because it's so spread over such a long period of time, it feels so detached from the competition proper. It
does, yeah.
You forget about it. It doesn't feel like it's part of it at all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it just seems like such a long, drawn-out process. Okay. So I can see why. The why is very clear as to why they're doing, or proposing this, I should say. But I don't think I can support a movement away from the status quo unless it markedly improves the competition and the subsequent football, because the World Cup is an advertisement for the game, which means the game itself, which is played at club level on the more regular basis
biggest
over
sporting
the 4
event
years.
on the planet too, it's got to be an actual spectacle.
All of that needs to work together and make sense, and I don't think that this proposal works in that context.
Okay. Here's a couple of things that I'm not sure people have thought about when they've said, yes, it should definitely be a 48-team World Cup. It means now, instead of 32 teams, 48 teams have to go to the host nation. In this case, the next World Cup, for example, if it was held there, Russia, if we did do 48 teams there. That's 48 countries now who have to book for the entire month, and 16 of them will waste a lot of money and a lot of preparation to go home embarrassed after 1 game.
Yeah, which is, for a lot of teams, impossible.
Exactly.
Maybe not impossible, but
that's
it's rough. A burden. It's a burden.
That is rough. And, FIFA will say, we'll chip in if you get sent home. But that is a logistical nightmare. I mean, you won't even really know who you're going to be facing, one presumes. Like, what group you're going to be put in. How does your preparation go? Do you know what group you're going to be, like I said, into?
I think this format is clearly impossible.
Well, this is the other thing. We saw what happened with the European Championships when it moved from 16 to 24. Mm-hmm. That was a bloated, relatively useless tournament. Mm-hmm. For all the people that spoke about how amazing Iceland were and how great Wales were and how great it was to see Northern Ireland, all of those teams would have qualified anyway on the old system.
Yeah,
all the teams that got through the crappy 24 team qualifying were teams like Turkey and Austria that got thumped. You know, like, there's a problem there in just inflating it to make the countries feel more welcome and be more welcoming of it.
I don't think a localized tournament is the right example, though, because Europe is Europe. I don't think they needed to be so
No, they needed that
inclusive
16-team tournament to just keep on keeping on. But what I'm saying is just expanding the tournament for the sake of inviting more teams dilutes the quality of your tournament, and ergo, people don't remember a tournament as fondly. If it is about an advertisement for the game, sure, you'll get more knockouts, which is great. But you'll also see a couple of thumpings, and then you'll get to see it all kick off again as a 32-team World Cup.
Yeah, I just think it should be... if they're going... the only way more teams would work like this is if you literally had just more groups, same seeding processes, you spread the seeds out, so there won't be any groups of death.
Then you're really taking your tournament to hell. Like, you're totally expanding it by a month.
That's what I'm saying. It's not possible. Yeah, what I'm suggesting is impossible in the current framework, but that would be the only fair way to do this.
No, you know what? Okay, pardon me. If you'd like to pick fair, here's what I'd do, right? You put every single nation...
And he's not known for being fair, folks.
No. This idea is so ridiculous. This is the only way that I could ever see it working, but it would be hilarious. You take every country in the world... You put them into a barrel with no seeds. You spin the barrel. You pull out names from the draw. Those two teams play in a knockout, and then it eventually goes to the World Cup. Every team gets a home and away.
Too much luck in that.
Oh, way too much. But at least it'd be fun to watch.
I don't mind the seeding process. I mean, having one top team in each group, who cares?
No,
and then, you've got a second team that's going to go through.
But I like the 32-team World Cup. I just think you just set and forget.
I agree, but I'm 100%. I'm suggesting that we retain status quo. That's my stance. I'm just saying, if you were to entertain the 48 team or larger, whatever the number is, larger World Cup, I think the only way to do it would be to just simply expand the exact same way, but to expand the groups. Have more groups, then have, just an extra round of knockouts, and that's it.
And as we pointed out, that would be very hard on the calendar.
Impossible.
I'm going to segue really quickly for one sec while talking about the World Cup and the calendar to Qatar. Now, we haven't really...
I'm shaking my head.
You rolled your eyes and shook your head like you were a valley schoolgirl going, whatever.
Yeah, no, that was... Yeah.
So, to bring it up really quickly, speaking of disrupting calendars, now that World Cup's been moved
and corruption.
Please.
But anyway.
Quintessential corruption.
But anyway.
That is the sultan of corruption, to coin the term. They're disrupting the entire calendar by putting that World Cup in January.
Yeah. Which is just idiotic.
It's appalling.
So idiotic. It actually ruins the Premier League.
Oh, it just... every league.
Yeah.
Pretty much every league in Europe.
Yeah.
Destroyed. What? So an oil-rich nation can cheat its way into a World Cup.
Which they should never host.
Never, ever host. Not only should they not be hosting
Human
in
rights
January,
abuses, there's so many things.
Yeah, not only should they not be hosting in January, which is a side issue to, they should be not hosting it at all.
Correct. And P.S. Australia was in that bid.
Yeah, so we are slightly biased, but also in the best possible way.
Could you think of a better host country?
No.
When you recall, when people talk about the Olympics and some of the best modern Olympics that have been done, Sydney's name is mentioned every time.
Always.
Because Australia knows how to throw these things.
Yeah,
we've got the infrastructure, we're big, we're a sporting nation, we're a place people want to go.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be so stinking hot and ridiculous, especially that time of year. It's actually going to be the best weather.
Football,
it's actually going to be the best weather.
Not so great for broadcasters.
Yeah, look, not quite. I agree, but regardless, it will be perfect. We can make the tournament perfect.
I agree.
We can play night games so that it's better time for the rest of the world to watch. It would be daytime for the States. It would still be evening for Asia. And it would actually be kind of that midday-ish time for Europe. So everyone would actually enjoy the tournament. No one would miss out.
And you know what? We'd probably move our games because we're Australia.
Yeah.
Like this,
to whenever they want them.
The last game would be like 10 p.m. and we'd all go, awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's do that.
And we would turn out and it would be a record at the MCG.
Absolutely. That's where the final would be, and it would be amazing.
Exactly.
Now, here's my little follow-up question before we wrap this podcast up. Do you think there's any chance at all that FIFA will give the World Cup to another country other than Qatar?
No.
At this stage.
No, I don't.
You think it's locked in and no amount of
as
whatever
much as
comes
I wish.
out, no amount of whatever corruption, whatever
it already has, hasn't
human
it?
abuses come out.
What else is going to come out that's going to change their mind? Unless Qatar declared nuclear war on somebody, I just can't see it happening.
I don't understand how they won in the first place. It boggles my mind.
I don't know how it's possible.
It boggles my mind. Do you remember watching
By the time the World Cup actually starts there, right?
Yeah.
I hate to work out how many people die.
Oh, isn't it
in the lead up to that?
disgusting?
I mean, the conditions of the workers, the Indian fly-ins that they bring in and basically take their passports at the airport.
Work them until they die.
Work them
until
to
they literally
death practically
die.
and pay them a pittance. I mean, there's just so many awful stories about what's going on in Qatar, and I don't want to get political, so I'm gonna not delve into that. But we all know, everybody knows, it's not a secret. It's not even a conspiracy theory. We all know that they don't make sense being the middle of the desert. Being a desert, that's what they are.
And remember their first pitch. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll build air-conditioned stadiums. Sorry, what?
Nuts.
What? How does that help the fans that are going over there in 60-degree heat that have to go outside the stadiums to, do what fans want to do? Party. Oh, I can't party and drink here? Why am I going to this freaking World Cup?
Yeah, it's honestly, I couldn't think of a less. I mean, there are nations that don't have the infrastructure that I would prefer. We gave it to them and helped them.
Hells yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No.
As much as I don't like any one nation getting the same thing over and over again, I would have accepted somebody who'd already had it 6 times over this.
I would have been fine for it to go back to America, to be honest, because of the way that the game is growing in America. It would have made a lot of sense in 2022.
I still think Australia is the best bet.
We should have been the one. But
I think it's totally fair. We've got a good enough side these days that it makes sense.
Yep.
And we're a sporting nation, like we've said, and we have the infrastructure. We could do it and do it well.
Yeah.
People would want to come here.
Yeah.
People would want to come here. They'd be like, holiday to Australia as well as the World Cup. Boom.
Hello.
It'd be one of the biggest ever.
Oh, it would be. It would be amazing. And plus, we might actually have made it to, say, the quarterfinals or something amazing, with the with the home support.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our discussion on this podcast. A very special little podcast for you guys with just a couple of topics that we brought up. Hey, if you've got any topics that you want to hear or anything that you want to say about what we've just said, we would love to hear back from you. Just go to StudsUp. It's on our Facebook page. You'll find it so easily if you type it into the little search bar. And you can leave us comments or likes, as I just said, or you can always visit our website. It's studsup-football.com. I am Garfield. Simon says, thank you so much, and we will see you next week for a review of the round where hopefully Manchester United will get up.
No.